So this is the first card we're going to create in this class. And really we're just doing some inlay with the same die cut, and then we're just going to add a Santa over top of it, simply because I thought it would be cute to turn it into a Christmas card. You don't have to do that. The inlay part is really the simplest technique other than just plain die cutting, and the sky's the limit. I only did a little bit of some red on the lighthouse and then some yellow in the windows. You can go crazy and add it into the water or do the entire thing. It's kind of like creating your own puzzle and then inserting all the pieces. So the very first step will be to die cut your pieces. So here's my die. And this particular one, because I wanted to make sure whenever I used it that the lighthouse was standing upright, I added a line to the back so that I could always place things and know that my lighthouse was standing completely upright. So I'm going to take some die tape and tape it in place. You could also use washi tape. I've used painter's tape. The thing with painter's tape you have to be careful of is sometimes it's a little bit too sticky, and the pressure of the die pushing on the paper, or the die machine pushing on the paper, pushing on the tape on the paper, it makes it stick really well, and sometimes I end up ripping paper. So die tape is your best friend when it comes to things like this. So I'm just going to run it through, and I'm only running it back simply because I want my machine to end up back this way. So now we're going to take this out, take the tape off. And that tape you can reuse a couple times if you want. Just depends really on how much you're touching it. And it also depends on the surface you're sticking it to. Some surfaces tend to take the sticky out more than others, especially ones like glitter, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to take a little die pick here, and I'm going to poke all the pieces that have stuck in there out before we work on cutting out the pieces we need to inlay. If you don't do this, you're going to affect the cutting quality for your next pieces. Now, some of those pieces I didn't actually need for this card. There were some water pieces in there, but I always, when I'm going to clean it, I clean the whole thing. So all I'm going to do to cut my red pieces, I'm just going to lay my cardstock scrap, and this is perfect for scraps because you don't need to have big pieces. Lay it right on top there. So my pieces are still stuck in my die there. Put the cardstock on the side. Now when I'm doing this, I tend to move my machine, inlay it, and then move it back. But for the class, I want to get rid of my machine once and for all. So I'm going to poke out the two pieces that I need. And then I just need the lights for the lighthouse for that. So let's die cut that. So we're just going to get all the pieces die cut together, and then continue. I'm going to leave my pieces in there. I don't need this die anymore, and those window pieces are really quite tiny, so I don't want to lose them in the process. So I'm just going to leave those there. Now I'm going to die cut my Santa and sleigh, and after doing this, I wanted more than 2 reindeer, so this one I'm going to do 3 reindeer. I just thought an odd number would look better. I think this is a fun, non-traditional way to use a lighthouse die. No one expects there to be a Santa and sleigh in front of it. All right, that is done. We are done with our machine for right now, so let's get it out of our way. So I'm going to leave my reindeer in there for the moment as well. Now, first step, I need to get all of these little die cut pieces out of here. Now, typically I would work right over a garbage can, but my garbage can is not in view of the camera, and you're probably fortunate that that's the case. I'm just going to do this on my desk, and then I'll clean it off once we're done. So this little die pick works super easy for this. And really all I need to do for some of them is just poke a corner through, and then they fall out. Some of them I do have to pull them because something wants to stick. So this technique will work for pretty much any die that has pieces you cut out. Obviously some dies will lend better to some techniques than others, but that's the way with pretty much anything. So I've got my card base here already folded. I'm gonna lay my mat down. Now the measurements for these cards are in the supply list, but I'll tell you right now what they are. My card base ends up being 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 when it is folded. This mat is 4 by 4 and this is 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. So there's a really tiny border there. So I didn't want to make the card too much bigger, but I also couldn't make it any more small because otherwise we were going to cut into our pieces here. And quite frankly, I have a thing for square cards and I like the 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 size. All right, so I'm going to center this on here. I'm using Distress Collage Medium to glue it together. What I like about the Distress Collage Medium is it's got a matte finish to it and it dries completely clear. So if by chance any glue seeps out, and that's especially possibly going to happen with the windows, I don't have to worry about it because it's going to dry completely clear and it's going to dry matte, so no one is going to know that it's there. So now I'm going to hold my pieces with my tweezers. If you have larger pieces, you don't necessarily need tweezers, but for smaller pieces, I'll tell you right now, it's going to be your friend. So I've got that one there. Let's flip it over so it's the right way when I turn it over. So you definitely want to have a liquid glue for this. And you also definitely want to have a liquid glue that dries clear. So I'm going to try to get these pieces out. Perfect, got all 3 of them. Now for this, the windows all seem the same size, so it doesn't really matter where they go. I'm going to put it in my tweezers, but I'm going to put my glue right here and try to do the tiniest little bit. Some of it will absolutely squeeze out because these windows are tiny. But in my opinion, the lighthouse looks kind of odd if I left the windows blue. And other than inlaying the pieces, I didn't add any stickles or any glossy accents, but you certainly could. You could put some stickles on the white part for the wave there. I have to press that to glue that down. It would look really nice along the waves here, and then it would look really nice to have some glossy accents right on top of the windows, making them glossy and shiny, but you certainly don't need it. All right, there we go. Now let's take our reindeer out, Santa and sleigh. And then I cut a little bit of that first reindeer off while I was die cutting, but that was intentional because I only wanted the 3. And then just to do it a little bit different, let's put them like this. And like I said before, obviously you don't necessarily need to have the Santa and reindeer. I just thought it added something. It would be really cute if you had a boat or something, a die cut. That would be really nice on it as well. Just hold it down for a second till the glue takes hold. So there we go, our very first card. Very simple technique, but just a little bit more interesting than just a plain die cut of the image. We'll see you in the next card video.